Hey, hi guys. Hope everybody's doing fine.
I'm Jan.
And I'm Paul. And together we are,
The Shadow-Caste.
yeah, whatever that means.
Yeah, everything's taken. You got to take what you can get.
Take what we could get. So, got a good story for you today. Well, I'm not sure how good it is, really. One of those ones that just pisses you off, I guess. But good to know what's going on out there. It's part of our motto to condense and
synthesize a lot of the stuff that we take in, so you don't have to watch the three-hour videos every day.
yeah. So
And offer solutions. That's a big part of us.
always the solutions, and I hope you are going to become part of those solutions. And I hope
Yes.
you're going to just, everybody on every channel says, "Oh, hey, you know what? We really like you to do. We really like you to like and subscribe, and then tell us what you think." But they don't really care. That's how I usually feel. But I can tell you something. We really care, and we look at those, every one of them.
We forgot to toast. We like to have fun too.
And
So hold on to that
With
while I
wine
move the
brings
table
truth.
closer so I can get closer to my mic. There we go. Up and out of the picture. Hello. There we go. Oh.
hey,
Up
okay,
close
we're
and
back.
personal.
Wow,
Wow.
I can smell your breath.
Is that what I look like? Okay. What's the topic today, Paul?
Well, I have this mission, and my mission is to help everyone on one front of this assault, this war against the people, to start seeing that this is the war of 1,000 fronts, and that it's happening everywhere and it's happening all at the same time. We've got to start looking at each other like brothers in arms instead of focusing on our small little niche that is the hill we're willing to die on, right?
So we don't die the death of 1,000 cuts.
Right, because that's really what's going on, bleeding out. And so I'm fascinated on I love the Constitution, and
Me too.
I have read so many original founding fathers documents, and just I love it. And
So you're not of the ilk that it's outdated and we just need to throw it out completely.
No, and I mean, I don't think we can look backwards and say, "Oh, they had slaves, and therefore we have to negate everything they ever achieved in our life," because
Right.
you can't see the future.
The whole world had slaves at that point.
Yeah, and they could say the same thing about the world could be run by vegans to 150 years from now, and they'll say, "Oh my God, they kept animals and ate them to savages. We don't treat anything that they have to say with any regard." But you gotta think, be open enough, active enough in your thinking to think everybody, nobody's perfect. Those guys weren't nice and
One
shiny.
thing you disagree with doesn't negate everything else they said. And the thing is, we're not going by the Constitution much these days, so we can't really judge it. We have done so many things against the Constitution and against the original intention of the Founding Fathers.
Totally right.
So
I really am passionate about regularly bringing up some constitutional stuff, and an organization, I don't know if you have watched them too, Jan, called the Institute for Justice, IJ.org.
no.
Amazing organization that of lawyers. And when do you ever get to use amazing in the same sentence as lawyers? Do you?
It just hit me, yeah.
Yeah, not often. So that, I don't know. They do their best.
What's it called again? Are you going to put it in the show notes?
Yeah, I'll put it up.
What is it called?
IJ.org.
IJ.org. Well, that's easy.
Easy to remember.
Okay.
And they file lawsuits regularly on behalf of citizens that have had their civil rights violated. And this is their latest expose, which is something I think we all need to really get to know. What I think is essential for everyone is to try to take a refresher course on how to protect yourself and what your rights really are.
You know, it used to be a thing, right? To be like educated, like in your civil liberties and your government and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, but you know something? For me, and anybody who lived through 9/11, I think you can safely say that there was a thing that happened just after the terror attacks that everybody just felt like, oh, they're taking over some of the rights that we've normally got because we're in a time of like a terrorist attack, and we have to sacrifice our rights in order to defeat this threat.
right.
And then the threat just never went away, and eventually I think people kind of just came to accept these new paradigms, you know.
I want to do a segment on all the rights that we've given up because they told us we'd be more secure, and the fact that we are not more secure. So we
Yeah.
gave them up for nothing.
That's a great segment.
Yeah, let's do that.
I like that one. So yeah, so today is we're at the airport, and this is a very specific use case, but it's going on everywhere. It's going on in cars too. It's just this video is particularly focused on airplanes, and it's talking about how the D.E.A, the Drug Enforcement Agency, is using its keys, I guess, access to the airports to just randomly violate your rights. And well, let the woman from IJ, she's gonna do a way better job explaining the base through. Let's
Okay.
watch that first clip.
Let's go.
It became kind of more and more shocking as he began to be very aggressive towards me when I declined his search. I am the government was his quote there.
Where's your bag at?
I don't consent to search, sir.
You don't have to consent. Where's your backpack at? Where is it? Under your seat?
It got put away, but I don't consent to being searched.
I don't care what this is.
For years, the Institute for Justice has represented innocent travelers who had cash illegally seized from them at our nation's airports. Often acting on little or no information, Federal Drug Enforcement Administration agents target certain travelers and bully them into letting their bags be searched.
Yeah. So there's the intro.
I don't care about your consent stuff.
Yeah, and you know, just a real score for people that somebody who was educated. That's a sad thing when you think about it. Here it is, 2024. DEA has been at this, doing this shit. As you'll learn later in the video, they were warned by Congress 10 years ago for their unethical behavior in doing illegal searches of bags, and they've continued because of civil forfeiture, and they get to keep 90% of the money that
spoils.
they take.
Yeah.
And so they've really become like this sort of like gang, right? Like, I mean, they're really out there just holding you up at the airport, right? They just have
Because only 0.05% of people are going to.
do anything about it. I mean, I think if anything talks about how important it is for all of us to not only be educated about our rights, but then in the face of fear, in the face of the injustice, to be able to keep your presence of mind and to be able to assert yourself and not allow these bullies, these like pickpockets.
And to be able to forfeit your convenience, because it might be if you stand up, you're going to miss that flight, and then you're not going to make that business meeting or, you know, that reunion with friends or whatever.
And I say that is your call, right? That is your.
But
that
make
is
an
the-
educated choice.
Yeah, but when that happens, that's the moment you get to stand up for the rest of us. Just as if it happens to me, it's the moment that I get to stand up, and has happened to me, right? And so I think incredible that this is the first time in all those years that somebody that knows their rights records the incident and then shares it with the Institute of Justice, who thankfully is filing lawsuits about it. And
But that's great. But a lot of times people are trying to film things and they get their cameras taken away, their phone taken away, or whatever. I mean, they're acting like it's illegal to film things these days, whether it be police or any other sort of organization like that.
That's so true. So here's anyway. That's the stage is set, and some educated but innocent man is about to walk into an airport and get an opportunity to stand up for what the founding fathers believed
Show
in.
me more.
Cool. Let's watch that next clip.
This is the most complete footage we have ever seen.
Set your bag down and then you can walk on the plane. You can do that, but you can't take your bag.
You're not with the, what do you call it? I've seen these like videos on YouTube. You're not with the.
I'm the DEA.
that's
I'm the government.
That's great. Do you have like legal ability to search?
Yes. Yeah.
I was in Cincinnati on a business trip, and I got sick the prior night, so I had to rebook my flight to a last-minute flight back to New York. He had basically just asked me for ID and to search if he could search my bags. And when I started to decline, he pulled out his badge and said that he was with the DEA. I'd almost imagine that this had to be some kind of mix-up.
After David refused consent to the DEA agent, he should have been allowed on his flight.
Yeah, he should have been allowed on his flight, but we're sort of talking about those hypotheticals again, right? Like in some ideal world where corruption doesn't run free, where DEA agents aren't incentivized to violate your Fourth Amendment rights because they get to keep 90% of the cash that they.
So the DEA itself keeps it, but does that agent get a? That would be an interesting question. Get a cut, maybe not of the drugs.
But they do all the time, right? They do all the time. Like,
they just take their own cut. Right
how many times have
off
they
the
found
top.
DEA agents and CIA agents smuggling drugs into the country?
And this guy had already gone through security.
Yeah, so it wasn't like it was some worry about the bombs or whatever, it was bullshit. It was just, this guy said, as you'll hear later, the whole premise is you booked a last minute ticket. That was what did it, is he booked a last minute ticket back to New York, and they used this idea that, like we have to make two distinctions inside drug dealers, right? Which is, you've got professionals, dangerous cartels that don't make any mistakes and make everything planned out.
They know
so
everything to
perfectly,
avoid.
right?
Yep.
And you've got head up your ass drug dealer who makes a last minute purchase of a plane ticket in cash because he's gonna fly tonight with his drugs or his drug money. And this is the kind of idiot that these people catch on a regular basis. I mean, they're obviously they're not messing with anybody who is paying their bosses. Right? That's not happening. They're just getting the assholes.
Just take
right?
the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Oh, well, all of a sudden, they're not doing anything real about it. They just don't want any repercussions for their actions later. They just want to make sure that they get the dumbasses and keep their money. And that's what they do all day, every day.
Maybe it's part of intelligent evolution.
Yeah. Like you're making an
Let's
argument
take the
for
dumbasses
cartels.
out of circulation.
I'd rather see the cartels gone, personally.
Me too.
Just brutal.
We love dumbasses.
I wouldn't mind if dumbasses suddenly evaporated. I guess it wouldn't upset me an awful lot.
You want both. You're arguing for both.
Yeah. So here's these guys. They're like, what's the difference? This guy is violating your rights. It's just that he's got a badge and a bunch of people who are willing to say he isn't allowed to rob you while you're at the airport. I mean, there's no real difference. You don't have to respect this guy in any way. But as you'll see, and when we get into it a little further, we're not the only people who mistrust these types of folks.
But the footage shows that the agent instead chose to double down on violating David's rights. The DEA agent claimed that he could keep and search David's bag. But that's just not true. The Fourth Amendment protects the stuff in your bag just as much as the stuff in your pockets.
I told the officer, I've seen this on YouTube before. This is a very weird thing. I'm aware of what you guys are doing right now. I was scared that he would do something worse with my bag in his custody. So when he threatened to take my bag to, back to the police area, wherever he was going to take it, I was worried that he might do something worse, like plant evidence within my bag, which would be the absolute worst case scenario.
Am I being detained right now?
Not you, but your
Am I
bag.
free to go?
Not your bag. I've told you like
I'm gonna
20
walk.
times. You can't do that.
Am I being detained?
Robert,
Then am I free to go?
Timeout. David was completely within his rights to refuse to let his bag be searched. But it is risky to simply ignore law enforcement officers and board your plane.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably pretty risky to, these guys, the only thing they like more than stealing your money is the opportunity to get some shots off on you. And
just flout their power.
yeah, I mean, these guys,
Give people a badge, and God, they go crazy.
well, it's who they hire. They hire a real specific kind of person.
Yeah, true. True.
And they're
Whose
just,
ego gets inflated by that.
right. I mean, it's like these guys are out there just like, and at the same time, I have to say, like, I get that it can be very hard to be a cop, and you don't get any appreciation basically from anybody anymore, and I think cops often they're pawns in this game, right?
Yeah, they are now, for sure.
Yeah, and that a lot of these guys, fuck, you couldn't get me to be a cop, man. I mean, people, you don't know. Next time you stop somebody in a car, you're dead. I mean, who the fuck would sign up for a gig like that? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so you got to
Especially
give
for
a
that
lot of
pay,
respect
yeah.
out to cops. I got a lot of respect for cops,
I do too.
as much as I think there's an overwhelming majority of dickheads that seem attracted to the job because they think that we should all respect their authority, right?
Because maybe they didn't get respect in their own life or growing up or whatever, and now it's a chance for them to be on the other side of the power.
Yeah, and they definitely get little mini boners about it. They do. They do.
I don't want that visual.
So, of course, he has the right to refuse, right? But this guy is like, he's armed.
Well, it's kind of like Fauci and I am the science. You cannot, dispute me. So the same thing. I'm the government. I'm the DEA. How dare you, dispute my authority.
And like, you could see her, like, imagine how many people go through
Most
this.
people would cower
And, well,
and submit.
And even he does cower a little bit, right? And he's like the guy's basically being told, like, you have no choice but to submit to this. And the guy's afraid, as I would be. I'm not sure how you'd come down on this, but I'd be afraid of the same thing, that this son of a bitch was going to stick
Plant
some
something.
drugs in
Yeah.
there.
No, that's a very intelligent fear.
Yeah, it's not like it doesn't happen.
It happened to me before.
Yeah.
It actually happened in Mexico, so this is kind of like the lowest level of how it could be. But we're trying to come back into the U.S. It's four hippie adults in a Volkswagen bus, and we had thrown everything out because we knew we were going to go across.
Yeah, sure.
It was only pot, but going across things, and they detained us for like 4 hours, just trying to wear us down, and they actually planted some pot in the car. And then it's like, okay, pay up. They were looking for a bribe, but we just spent 3 months in Mexico as hippies. We had no money left. So we couldn't have given them money.
So there you go.
They finally figured that out, but
that happened to you.
Yes.
And happened to me. I'm driving through Texas one time, and a trooper pulls me over, and he says, I want to search your car. I said, you can want a lot of things, but you're not going to search in my car isn't one of them. And he says, well, I'm going to bring the drug dog. And now there's a law that says they can't keep you detained while you wait for a drug dog. I hope everybody knows that. If you get pulled over, unless they have reasonable, articulable suspicion, which means you should have your cell phone out and you should ask them, why am I being detained? Tell me what law you suspect me of breaking. And if they can't answer it at that moment, well, you're gonna give them a world of hurt if you get to sue them. Because
If you're willing to stick it out, and most people aren't.
yeah, and a lot of judges that go fuck, they're gonna just side with the cops. I mean, you get a win every so often. It's like a fluke, I sometimes think it's just a little marketing clip just so people think there's still somebody gives a fuck. But
Go ahead, resist, see what happens.
yeah, but so I say no. And in the meantime, he says, well, he still doesn't have the articulable suspicion. So he looks in my back window of my car and says, I see a marijuana seed. I'm like, fuck you, man. What a douchebag you are. And so then now he's got the basis to call the drug dog out and search the car. And while I'm in handcuffs sitting on the front of this guy's car, his giant donut-eating partner walks in front of the video camera of the car. And in the same moment, this guy, I still remember his name like it was yesterday, Barry Washington, looks up at me, laughs, and he's got a giant bud of marijuana in his hand that he smacks the trunk of my car with. And now, what do you think? The drug dog comes out. There's fucking green bud stuck on my...
You saw him put it in there?
I watched him do it. He laughed at me while he did it. I didn't just see him. He was like, fuck you, I think this is my first time.
You dare to
fucking
resist
somebody over.
us?
Yeah. So 2 of us both have the experience. So imagine how common it is.
Yeah.
And this guy's fear is of the government planting evidence on him and putting him in jail. That's
a legitimate risk.
This is where we are. This is the world we live in right now. I mean, it's worse than you think. So here, let's carry on. Or this is the one we watched already.
And even if pot was legal in that state that he was in, they're going to accuse him of taking it across state borders, international borders,
Some
whatever.
horse shit.
In an encounter with law enforcement officers, we recommend asking if you're being detained. If they say yes, cooperate with the officer's lawful commands. And if they try to take your bag away to search it, do not attempt to resist with force or violence. But do not say you consent. If they say no, then you're free to leave. Okay, now back to the action. The agent then followed David onto the plane, grabbed another passenger's bag, and tried to walk off with it.
Oh, that's my... Hey.
That's yours. Where's your bag at?
I don't consent to search, sir.
You don't have to consent. Where's your backpack at?
And so I thought the plane was going to take off because we were well past the kind of gate closing time at the time he boarded.
So the officer was lying when he said it doesn't matter if you don't consent. That was a flat out lie, right?
Yeah, totally. Just nonstop. That's all these guys do. Man. They do this all day, every day.
Because they know people aren't aware of their rights.
Right. I mean, this isn't like, okay, this happened this random time. No, this is going on all day, every single airport, because now they're like, oh, you're traveling to a known drug center. Well, yeah, a fucking U.S. city, Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm flying to. Because there's no flights to the middle of fucking nowhere, which is the only place where you idiots haven't done your job for so long that there aren't
Every
drugs.
place is a known drug destination.
Yeah, every place is a known drug destination because you fuckwits haven't done your job for 40 years, right? Of course they're all drug destinations.
Fuckwit, that's a new one to me. I'm going to have to create a Paul vocabulary list.
Fuckwit. The guy that works at the airport and wants to search your bags.
You want to watch the dog?
Yes, please.
Sit your seat.
I would like to watch the
Then
dog.
come out. Up to you, man.
Well, I followed him off the plane because he had my backpack. I
can't hear
I wasn't going to
anything
leave
you're
the
saying.
airport with my work laptop, my passport, a lot of my documentation from work, and so I didn't have a choice.
The agent again insists that he does not need David's consent to take his bag. But without probable cause of a crime, DEA agents cannot seize your belongings against your will. Period.
Okay, so when you buy a last minute ticket,
Yeah.
we get alerts. We come out to any and all flights. Doesn't matter who you are, race, sex, nothing, right?
Yeah.
We come out and we talk to those people, which I tried to do to you, but you wouldn't allow me to do it.
Am I
Which
am I
smells-
under suspicion of a crime right now? Do you have probable cause?
So we have a lot of money and drugs going out of every airport.
So he's just talking around the question. He's not answering his questions.
Yeah. Oh, we got money coming out of every airport. Oh, well then.
We have probable cause for other people, but not for you.
Well, and this idea that if you buy a last minute plane ticket that you're you fit a profile of a, of a money launderer or a drug. I mean, what? Really? Like, what percentage of people that launder money? I mean, I don't know. Maybe if there's some drug cartel people watching, you could tell. You never know.
Post it in the comments under an assumed name.
I assume that if you are a money launderer and you lose the cartel's money, I assume that there's probably some dire consequences to that. And so one would conjecture that they probably do a great job of making sure that they don't do
Arouse suspicion.
stupid fucking things like buy last minute plane tickets in cash. I don't know. Seems reasonable.
Or have buds hanging out of their pocket or something.
Yeah. And that like
White powder.
you're dealing with some dealer / user in your scenarios here where you're just counting on the dumbest among us to walk to the airport with enough money that makes it worth your while to seize, and you're just fishing, really. Like the thing is that they're doing this. This is the one guy that had a thought that he can't let them just search his bags and starts recording. Thousands of times a day, people are just letting them search their bags. And if they find money, doesn't matter how much money, they're keeping it. And then you have to sue them and try and get it
Prove
back.
where it came
and
from.
it takes years. Sometimes and most of the time, as I understand it, you never get it back. It's gone. And they use it. Whether they individually get the benefit. I mean,
Well, just like they seize people's cars and all kinds of other property when there's a drug bust.
Yeah, keep all that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
That's a good side business, I guess.
I bet they do pretty well,
I'm sure they do.
I bet they do pretty well. So now in this next clip, we can actually see here comes the drug dog, right?
Okay.
So now we're at the spot where they've detained him. They've got the whole flight on hold.
And everybody on the flight thinks this guy's a loser,
Right, they're
and so
cursing
he's
his
lost
name.
his reputation too.
And the drug dog's about to come. So and watch this really carefully because it's pretty telling.
Right now, do you have probable cause?
So we have a lot of money and drugs going out of every airport
Understood.
to New York.
Okay.
It's an influx of it.
Okay.
Okay? So that's
Am I being suspected of a crime? I just want this to be reported.
I don't know.
The DEA hires informants to alert agents when someone purchases a last-minute ticket to a known center of drug activity, which is most major American cities. Of course, buying a last-minute ticket isn't probable cause of a crime. That's why the agent keeps refusing to identify any crime that David is suspected of. If you have to take a last-minute flight for work or to visit a sick loved one, guess what? You'd be on this list too.
Do you have probable cause for a search?
I have probable cause for a dog to walk up and smell your bag. Yes.
This is, like my lawyers are going to be taking this up with you.
You didn't take your bag off like I asked you to.
I don't have to. I asked you if I was being detained, and I can walk away if not.
You can't.
So pretty interesting, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, you feel like he's got his gun out, pointed at you, right? All of a sudden, he's just shouting at you, trying to be as demeaning as possible, and insisting, right, that like he can search whatever the fuck he wants.
And everybody's so intimidated by authority, and they're just used to, falling in line and doing what the authority or the expert says.
Right. But it's there's a certain, I've seen this a lot, and it's an interesting point, but let's talk about it just after this clip, because I think first you should see what happens here.
So I was waiting by the jet bridge for about 5 minutes, and I remember seeing the dog handler pop up through one of the kind of airport gates. And at first, he pointed the dog towards my bag, and the dog took a smell and just ran straight past it. A few seconds later, he started, clicking his fingers, and the dog started coming back, and I saw him basically gesture at my bag.
You see that? You got to record it. Don't edit that part out of the video either.
Incredible, right?
He's just basically dragging the dog over the bag, like, do something, man.
Yeah, I mean, and like, this is a guy, they just got this dog trained so that whenever they want it to identify a bag, they just blow the kiss noise.
But it didn't look to me like the dog thought there was something in the bag.
He passed it over already. And then he comes back on the bag.
And he kept going over it. The dog didn't really
No,
there's something
when
here.
a dog, when a drug dog alerts, they're trained to sit down.
Oh, really?
So when it sits, it says, "Yep, I smell something." And but you see what happens is it doesn't only do that when it smells something. It also sits down when the owner snaps his fingers, blows a kiss noise, and points at
gives
something.
him the command to sit.
They gives it the command to smell this bag and sit.
Motherfuckers.
And so then they take this video and they bring it to some judge who was probably a prosecutor 5 years ago, and they say, "Look, Judge, the dog reacted. Look how it's responded to the smell of that bag. We need a warrant from you to open it up." But what nobody seems to be keeping statistics on, these people claim it's incredibly high. They say it's that the more than the times that it's right, it's wrong. Mm-hmm. And that over 50% of the time, the judge issues a warrant, they open up whatever, and there ain't shit, right?
You should get some of your warrant issuing privileges taken away when you have really bad statistics.
Yeah, a lot of. Let's see if we can get the government to vote on restricting the government's powers. So but this brings in this point that I've seen across the board. I've seen it with so many law enforcement. I've seen it with so many people, which is this mindset where it's okay if they do dirty shit because they think they're the good guys. And so they've got themselves convinced that they're the good guys. And so if they can do some dirty shit to you to frame you, get you set up, then they've convinced themselves.
You mean like the Democrats? Just because they have a good end goal to take down Trump so he won't be Hitler, they can do anything they want in any amount of dirty tricks?
Well, it's I hadn't thought about it in that context, but, they certainly have really
it's why, when I took those, was it the SAT or was it just those regular tests they gave you every year in high school? I've always had a strong intuition as long as I've listened to it, but they always had this question, the end justifies the means. And I thought, what the fuck is that doing on this test buried amongst the math and history questions? Why are they asking that? But that's to identify the people who will do anything.
Right.
to get to the end.
That ethically, they just have
Yeah.
some missing part.
Yeah.
And they think, like I'm the good guy. So
Right. So I can do anything. It doesn't matter what I do and what rules I
if I
break,
smack
what morality I
marijuana
break.
on the trunk of this car or in the on this guy's backpack, or I've got my dog trained to.
Because even if this guy didn't have drugs today, I know he had them.
Yeah, they're
Last
immune.
week.
They just come up with some new rhetoric. So let's see if we can. So the dog just completely alerts, right? There's no doubt about that. To the
Okay.
axe.
I wouldn't have got that. I'm glad you
So here, yeah.
explained it.
The Supreme Court has held that agents can't extend a traffic stop to make someone wait for a drug dog unless they have probable cause. The same should hold true at an airport. And it's not like drug dogs are infallible. In fact, dog searches have a high false positive rate. As it turns out, man's best friend is often more invested in pleasing their handler than anything else.
You're alerted on your bag.
Okay.
Now, this is your legal right. You can allow us to look at it, or you can tell me no, and we can write a search warrant. We can apply for one. I don't know if we get one or not, but we'll apply
I
for
don't
one.
consent to being searched.
So you don't want us to search your bag either?
Don't consent to be searched.
Okay. All right. Well, then we got to take your bag back. So do you want to sit with us at the PD while we try to get a warrant on your bag today? What do you want to do?
And then just like that, this guy's entire day is gone, right?
So many great options they gave him.
Yeah. Want to sit in the police station while we get a warrant for your search in your bag? But you know something? I mean, I think we each have our own. To the extent that you think you can, I think we each have a duty to stand up and fight against whatever we can fight against, you know?
Whenever we can. Yeah.
One time I was driving from Ithaca back to home, I guess. And there's this, I'm driving a minivan and two kids sleeping in the back seat. And I'm in a passing zone. Car's going, in front of me is going 40 miles an hour. I probably go 60, 65 to pass it. Next thing I know, lights, I'm getting pulled over. And this little Nazi New York State trooper shows up. And I mean, he is just, I say, like, he says, oh, you were speeding. And it's just got this little attitude, tell me, put my hands on the steering wheel, right? Keep my hands on the steering wheel. And he unclicks his gun, right? And so I'm sitting there with my hands on the steering wheel going, you son of a bitch. You unclick your gun at me while I got my two kids in this car. I tell you something, I'm going to take you to court and I'm going to have my way with you. And he's saying, that you're being physically threatening, right?
Physically.
Yeah. And I was like, all right. I'm just going to keep my hands here. Give me your tickets and mind your manners, because he just kept with this attitude. So, of course, I gave it back to him and said, you work for me. Don't forget who pays your paychecks. And you think I'm going to sit here and listen to you talk down to me like this? So, speeding, some bullshit. So I look up on the internet 101 questions to ask your ticket officer.
Oh.
And download it, print it. Off I go to court. And stand in court takes me an hour the first time. And I was only through 30 of the questions. And the judge stops me and says, are you almost finished? And I said, no, I'm not. And he says, okay, well, we got to postpone this until everybody else has come through. They got, 150 people in there. $180 at a time, man. Just everybody just walks up there and says, guilty, $180. Guilty, $180.
We need some time to deal with this
Just
guy.
a big cash cow. And the trooper's there, the judge is there. So everybody else is gone. Goes another 2 hours, right? 2 more hours past that. Me sitting there asking him when the last time he had his radar detector calibrated using those tuning forks and 100 other fucking questions. And how many hours he had, according to his own statement, he witnessed me, which of course is just very conveniently the requirement, in his rearview mirror, traveling at excess speed. So I asked him how many hours of training he had assessing speed through a rearview mirror. And it was obvious he had no fuck you bullshit, you know what I mean? So it's like, I do they're all in on it. They're all just a little bunch of money grubbers, you know what I mean? They all just doing their part to bilk us. And so at the end of what turns out to be like a 4-hour long process from the time that I first started asking a question until everybody else went through, and then finally I'm out, that the guy says, the judge is like this, right? The judge is on the fucking top, he's like almost asleep. The state trooper is laying back in the witness stand with his hands back. Just every couple of minutes you just hear him go,
Not Mr. Pompous Ass
right?
anymore.
Yeah, little shithead. So at the end of it, I say, yeah, I am finished, Your Honor. He doesn't even, it doesn't even take him a second to just hit his fucking gavel. Says, guilty, $180, right?
Guilty?
Guilty, $180. This is what I expected from a bunch of shitheads that are just there fucking robbing people on the side of the road with a license. And so I walk up to, made you work for it. And just walked out the fucking birds for the state trooper who's just spent a whole evening having to deal with me. And you know something? Yeah, my wife was like, what the fuck are you doing? But
most people wouldn't have wanted to put that kind of time into it and not get the result that they wanted.
Oh, but I did.
Yeah, but
Oh, but I did. And I mean, if I can just say one thing, if I can suggest a solution to these assholes that you're watching here today, just fucking grind them out. Just keep it cool while the scene's happening, and then just
make them suffer.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah, but most people would rather be home watching Netflix.
Well, sometimes, the democracy needs you. So, all right. So here we start winding out, right?
I'm not consenting to the search, sir. I'm sorry.
With the questionable dog alert, the agent now claims that he can easily get a warrant to search the bag. David continues to refuse to consent to a search.
We know our law. We know what we're doing out here and what we can and cannot do.
Okay.
It's a piece of paper that will literally stay with us. It just says that you're allowing us to search it. If you want to sign your name that says that we can search it, which I don't know why it's so difficult, we'll search it. If not, we're going to do the same thing I just told you. I'm not going to repeat all over again. Think about it for a minute. I know you're irritated. I have a phone. Yeah. I know you're annoyed. And I'm annoyed, too, that you caused such a scene for something so silly.
Defending your constitutional rights is not silly.
Agreed.
I mean, something so silly. I'm annoyed too, right? Like, what? Think about that. If you could just take that out of context.
I'm annoyed that you didn't cave in like everybody else.
Yeah, I know you're pissed off that I'm violating your civil rights, but I'm pissed off too that you're making me feel so bad about violating your rights. I got to put all this effort into just fucking you over, right? Like, I mean, what? Dude, are you on?
I'm annoyed that you're not making it easy for me to violate your civil rights.
I could have robbed 3 more people by now. You weren't being so goddamn difficult, right? Like, that's really what he's saying.
You're really cutting down on my...
Yeah, his take.
My take.
Yeah, his take. His numbers are down. You got to imagine somebody knows that's
my
out there.
profits today.
They got to have quotas. I bet you they got quotas.
Yeah.
Right? Every
They always say like traffic ticket cops don't have quotas, but I've known them personally and they all admit they
horse
do.
shit. Yeah, of course they do. Yeah. They always have quotas.
And right before the end of the month when things close
bam,
out,
bam, bam, bam. There's the fucking radar gun overheats. Yeah, and like you don't think that these DEA agents have some sort of unofficial quotas of how much money they're supposed to steal from people every month? Of course they do. And like, I think that the IJ.org is a phenomenal organization. And I think sometimes I think, they're a little bit misguided, and they still put a ton of hope in Supreme Court. Like they still act like the court is a real thing. And they aren't just really pulling political strings, and that they're not making decisions. Like, I don't know if you saw our last video, but they're just quite clearly a lot of decisions that are getting made in courts that are for financial reasons, like homeless people going into the prison industrial complex, right, that we talked about before.
That's a good video. Yeah.
And so, like, they still act like, oh yeah, these justices, they don't sleep at night if they feel like they've violated one person's rights, but like,
I think they're sleeping pretty good.
yeah, I mean, maybe they don't really believe it, they're just afraid to say. But here's our last clip from this. And
we would do this and be doing this across the country if it was illegal.
I think over the past few months, as the anger has dissipated, it's been a feeling of just, privilege in the sense that nothing had happened to me, but injustice for those where something much worse had happened to them.
What happened to David was illegal, but sadly it occurs every day at America's airports. The reason? Something known as civil forfeiture. It is completely legal to travel domestically, as David was, with any amount of cash. But agencies like the DEA seize cash anyway.
And seize it they do, right? I mean, isn't that just such an eye-opener?
Yeah.
Of like, that this is going on all day, every day, and in every major airport. And they're targeting people based on nonsense. They got make-believe dogs that'll give an indication whenever on command, and then your years trying to get your money back. I mean, like, which I think is a bigger theme that we need to circle back on. I have another Fourth Amendment story that I'd like to do soon that's more specifically about this. But I think we see the example here, which is, who are these informants that the DEA is paying to inform them that you've bought a ticket at the last minute? And I don't think that the answer to that is some Joe, right, that works at the counter. I think that this is much more systemic. And I think that these corporations, these airlines, are giving access to those records directly to the DEA. I don't think that there is a middleman. I think they want you to think that there's an informant.
Well, if social media is given it, why wouldn't the airlines be given it?
Right. And I think that idea of widespread government spying is much, we look at it only typically from this one viewpoint of like, oh, the NSA or whatever is trying to listen in on our phones, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's congressional hearings. But then there's this other thing that's been going on for quite some time, which is where governments and police agencies pretend to be private corporations and buy the data, right, and then use that data in criminal investigations, and then say, oh, well, we didn't violate anybody's rights because we bought the data. But then obviously extends quite much a bit further. And I think that there's a real game that gets played there that I'd love to expound on in another video coming up soon.
Yeah, so we should do a outsourcing crime video.
Nice and not nice. Nice. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and let us know what you think. I mean, my view is I mean, I always try to see both sides, and I get that this cop, I don't hold any grudge against this particular guy. I think he just
Doing what everybody else in his
doing what he's told to
unit
do.
does.
He's got
Yep.
deadlines, trying to meet his deadlines. Doesn't look like a bad guy. He looks like some dude who's just trying to fucking finish his shift and go home.
And have extra cash like his buddies do.
I didn't say that. You said that. So, but yeah, like, you know, it doesn't look, but it's the fact that, like, you know, people are telling him to do this who know it's not legal, and they are giving him tactics. I mean, I'd be curious to know if they train these guys how to. It almost seems, from everything you heard from him saying, it almost seems to me like there's some training in how to.
Almost like a sales course, you know, how to influence people.
Yeah, like how to navigate anybody.
Not win friends and influence people, just influence people.
How to fuck people over and steal their money by.
And make them grateful that, you know, you were so nice about it.
The forgotten book of Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd love to hear what your opinion is,
And I guess solutions wise, we're just saying stand up when you can. You know, we know it's not always convenient, or people don't always have the kind of personality that can do that. But the more that people do stand up to the injustices of this world, and especially in the U.S., the more rights we will have, and the more information everybody else will have to do the same.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to use your video camera, right?
Yeah.
Record.
Yeah. Thank God we have
Don't
that.
stop recording. If you get pulled over by the police, before you reach for your driver's license, get the camera recording, right? Make sure that no matter what the incident is, whenever you're having any kind of an interaction, be sure that you have your own copy, because boy, is it amazing how often those body cameras just conveniently fail. They just always never seem to work right at the moment when they could be exculpatory or.
And there's so many stories I wouldn't have believed if I hadn't seen it on video.
Wow, man.
You know, it seems like, oh, the guy, I can't tell if this guy's telling the truth or not. But you see it on video and you're like, wow, yeah, that absolutely did happen.
Right. And like all of a sudden one video is worth 1,000,000 words, right? I mean, that's the truth.
Some famous guy said that sometime. Anyway, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe and share and comment. We want to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, comment. Be social.